Hey friends, welcome back. Sheila here, and today we are talking about budget bike touring. How to travel on a bike on a budget. Bike touring is an incredible way to travel, and I firmly believe it is one of, if not the most affordable way to travel. But it's also not without its costs. So today we are going to talk about the 5 main costs of bike touring and how you can save on each. First of all, we have the gear. You need a whole lot of gear to start bike touring. But don't worry, the solution is to beg, borrow, and sales. Look for sales. If this is your first bike tour, you don't even know if you're gonna like it yet. Spoiler alert, you're probably gonna love it. But you don't know for sure, and you may not want to go investing thousands of dollars into a brand new hobby. Before you head out on a bike tour, you're gonna need a bike and bike bags and rain gear and camping gear. Ask your friends, ask your family, put a post on Facebook or Instagram, and ask your whole network if anyone would be willing to lend you some stuff. And then of course, if they are so kind as to lend it, make sure to take care of it. Next, for those things you aren't able to borrow, start looking at secondhand options. Look at Kijiji and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. Check out secondhand or trading groups on Facebook. Look for any opportunities to get some equipment secondhand. For those things you aren't able to borrow or get secondhand, that's when you are gonna have to start looking at buying things outright. What I like to do is do a lot of research on that product. What is the high end? What is the low end? And can I find something in the middle that's gonna work with my budget, but still last longer than the cheap stuff, but maybe not be as lightweight or high tech as the really expensive stuff. It's also good if you can plan ahead of your trip and start looking for things in the off season when businesses are trying to clear out their old stock to make room for new stock, and you might be able to get something on sale. I will say that as I film this in July of 2021, with everything that's gone on in the world, we are dealing with a global shortage on bikes and other outdoor equipment. It may be harder than in past years to find everything on as good deals as in the past, but stay patient and keep at it. Whew, it's hot in here. Cost number 2 is food. You are burning through a lot of fuel riding your bike every day, and you need to replenish that fuel and eat lots of food. And if you end up eating out in restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's gonna add up real quick and eat right through your budget. So the solution is to cook for yourself. You can get a camp cooking setup for less than $100 and make your meals on a really small budget. Grab your groceries from the grocery store or corner store or market and create meals yourself. If you feel like you're gonna be struggling for inspiration in that department, I did create a video and a downloadable guide with some recipes and snack ideas, which I will link below. I will also say on this one that food and cuisine is a big part of the traveling experience. And even though I always try to travel on a budget, I also don't want to miss out on the experience of the food in that area. But I don't believe that cooking for yourself or traveling on a budget means you have to miss out on experiencing that place's food. You can get local fruits and vegetables and dips and sauces at the grocery store that are unique to that place. You can even find unique flavors of chips or candy or other snacks that are unique to that place. And something that I also do, even when I'm on a tight budget, is I look up what that place is famous for, the food that it does really well, and I make sure to treat myself to a meal or two out. So if I'm cycling through a country for 2 weeks, most of that time I'm making my own breakfast, lunches, and dinners, but 1 or 2 times I will treat myself to a meal out and get to experience that true local cuisine. Number 3 is accommodation, and bicycle travel offers us some unique opportunities to save in this department. Now, depending on the country or region you're in, that's gonna change how much your accommodations are gonna cost in general, but generally I think there's a bit of a ranking system. So on the free side of things, you're gonna have wild camping or stealth camping. Now you are of course gonna have to invest in a tent and sleeping bag and sleeping mat and all that kind of camping gear, but once you have that, wild camping or stealth camping is essentially free. But something to keep in mind, of course, is are you going to be able to wild camp or stealth camp in the place you are going. So that's something that's worth looking into ahead of time. Next, we have another pretty free option, which is using websites like Warm Showers to stay with local people. Generally, these are free, or in the case of Warm Showers, it now has a startup cost for people that are intending to use it as a cyclist. But after that startup cost, it is free to stay with hosts as much as you would like. The idea here, of course, being that it's about paying it forward. So hopefully down the road, you would then host another cyclist and pay it forward that way. I will say that I haven't used these hosting services since 2019, so after everything that has happened, I can't say for sure how active hosts are right now, but hopefully as things go on, we'll be able to host and be hosted more and more. Our third basically free option is work exchange opportunities. These are things like Workaway or Woofing or pet sitting, and I will link to some of them below. This is basically where you are exchanging your labor or care for free accommodation. So you might be working on a farm or taking care of someone's pet or home. By offering your labor or services, staying in that place is free. You may even be compensated in some occasions, but one thing to keep in mind here is that they generally do expect people to stay for a decent amount of time, at least a few days, usually a week or more. And they do usually expect you to get there on a specific day. So this is one where you generally need to plan ahead a little bit more, but it is a really nice option if you're on a long bike tour and you feel like you need a week off somewhere. It's a great way to stay somewhere for a week, rest, recoup, and do it in a super budget-friendly way. These websites do typically have a fee if you want to message somebody, as in to actually plan an exchange. They are free to kind of browse and see if you can find what you're looking for. If you do and you want to reach out, generally there will be a fee. But still, it's generally quite small, and if you use the service, it can really end up being worth it. So those are our basically free options. Then we hop into a ranking system of paid options. So first we're gonna have campgrounds. These are generally gonna be quite affordable because of course you have your tent, you have your accommodation, but they provide you somewhere to set it up and washroom and that kind of thing. Next, you'll have hostels. These are gonna be slightly more expensive than campsites, but they can be really helpful in cities. You are staying in a room with other people, so your cost is going to be lower. And then lastly, and in a whole array of different costs, is going to be your hotels, motels, Airbnbs, and these are going to totally vary in cost depending on the amenities. So that is the overall ranking system I think of when it comes to bike touring accommodations, and it's all about finding the options that feel right for you. Number 4 is our additional or surprise costs. These are those big lump sums that can really add to our budget. So one of them is going to be transportation. Now, of course, as cyclists, we mostly are our own transportation, so we're gonna save lots in this category. When it does come time to take a plane or ferry or bus or train, that can definitely add up. So that's something to think of when you are budgeting. Are you going to need to take a train to cross a certain region? Are ferries going to be required to get you from place to place? And then of course, flights. If you are able to start your trip from your home, then you're not going to have that initial startup flight and you're definitely going to save there. So it's good to have an idea. That way you can either select a trip somewhere where you're not going to have too many transportation costs, or start looking ahead of time for deals. Next in this category, you want to consider what kind of traveler you are. Are you somebody that really enjoys going out for a night of drinks in the city? Are you somebody that likes going to museums or art galleries or national parks, which might have hefty entry fees? It doesn't mean you have to totally change who you are or miss out on the experiences you want to have, but it is something to be mindful of as you create your budget for your bike tour. Something I do, for instance, is when I get to a city, rather than feeling like I need to go into every historical center or art gallery, I take a free walking tour. A lot of cities will offer these kind of free walking tours where for 2 hours you're taken around by a guide, you're You're shown a lot of the different key points in that place. You're given a bit of an overview of the history, and they're generally really interesting and informative. It is expected that you tip your guide, so there is a cost there, but still it's a much more affordable way to see a lot of a city. And lastly in this category is bike or gear repairs. If your bike breaks down or your gear breaks, that's gonna be a hefty fee. Some of this is unavoidable, of course, but I do think it's good to make sure that your bike is in good working condition. Take it to your local bike store and make sure that it is ready for this adventure. Even if you have to pay a fee for them to look it over or to replace some parts, generally I think it's better to do that ahead of time than on the road when something more serious could happen, or where you're gonna feel like you're in a pinch, you're trying to get moving again, and you have to just buy whatever you can get your hands on without being able to look into your options. Also, take a good look at your gear, set up your tent, make sure you have all the pieces, make sure all your gear is working well, that your rain gear is waterproof, so you're not gonna have to stop and buy something on the way that could potentially be really pricey. And cost number 5 is the general cost of living. What does it cost to live in or travel in the place you are looking at? Different regions and countries are inherently gonna have different costs of living and different travel expenses, and so that is something to keep in mind when you're planning your trip. It can be really helpful to look at the general costs of campgrounds and food and hostels in a region and get a sense of if that feels like it's within your budget. If it's not, it might be worth considering if there's another place to go that would be better within your budget, because stressing about every bill isn't a way to have a great experience. So it might be better to pick some place that's gonna have a cost of living that's closer to your budget so you can really have a fun, comfortable time. Okay friends, those are the 5 costs I think of when it comes to bike touring and how I save, but I would love to hear from you. Do you have any little tips and tricks that help you save on a bike tour? Or are there other hidden costs that I didn't think of? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video and you found it helpful, please give it a like, really supports my channel. If you want to be notified whenever I put out new videos, you can hit subscribe and the little bell, and you can follow me on Instagram at Sheila.daily. Thanks, have a good one, bye.